What's up everyone, Mark here, and today we are talking about chicken stew. Or maybe more accurately, we are revisiting chicken pot pie. Now, if you saw the chicken pot pie recipe I did a while back, we're essentially doing the same thing here, except we're serving the filling as a stew. And in place of the crust, we are going to cut up and bake off some puff pastry sheet to make crust points. Just a much simpler, more informal way to serve what's really the same dish. The other difference is the chicken. Normally, you all know by now, I love to use rotisserie chicken. Used it in the pot pie recipe, chicken soup, you name it. This time we're actually going to cook up chicken specifically for this. I had a couple of chicken breasts in the freezer that I should use up sooner rather than later. This is a perfect opportunity for that. We're going to poach them. It's a very gentle way to cook. It's kind of hard to mess up even if you overcook. It's hard to end up with dry or bad chicken. I'm not going to go into too much detail, although the instructions and the ingredients for that part are down in the description below. Essentially, all we're going to do is put the chicken breasts into a pot, sprinkle on some poultry seasoning and salt and pepper, cover with water, and get it boiling. And once it's boiling, we're going to just cover it and reduce the heat, let it simmer for about 8 to 10 minutes. Come back and check it with the instant read thermometer. If it still needs more time, you can go in maybe 5-minute increments. You just don't want it to go too long. But once it reaches 165 internally in the thickest part of each breast, you can pull them out, cover them, set them aside, let them cool just long enough until you can handle them. And generally what I like to do is just cut them against the grain into thick slices and just kind of get in there with my hands and pull them apart and kind of shred and pull into bite-sized pieces and a little bit smaller than bite-sized pieces. That's kind of my preferred method, whether it's for soup, for a pot pie, chicken salad, anything of this sort. So then once we've got our chicken, we can move on to the rest of the recipe. Now before we get into that, I want to thank you all again so much for continuing to watch these videos and continuing to help support the channel. Please give the video a thumbs up. Please comment down below. Positive, negative, good comment, bad comment, I don't care. I want to hear it. Tell me what you think of the recipe. Tell me what you might do differently. I want to hear from you. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the red button down below or the watermark in the corner, and when you do, make sure you hit the bell icon so you get a notification every time I have a new video out. Alright, let's get right into it. Alright, we're ready to get started. So aside from our 3 or 4 cups of cooked chicken, which again, you can use rotisserie chicken or you can cook up a couple of chicken breasts poached, just like I showed, we are going to need 1 puff pastry sheet. These are generally about 9 by 9. That's what I'm working with here. You can adjust accordingly for whatever you've got. We have got 4 tablespoons of butter, 1 lightly beaten egg. We have 1 small onion chopped, 2 carrots and 2 ribs of celery, each chopped small. What I like to do there is, the smaller I chop it, the faster it'll cook in the stew and the less time I have to wait. And particularly because we're not putting this as a pie filling where it's going to bake extra time in the oven, I want to cook as much as it can, as quickly as it can while it's in the pot. So I usually like to slice them, slice each rib and slice the carrots lengthwise. And then cut into about 1/4 inch slices. So they all end up being about half the size of the full width of the celery rib or the carrot, and it just helps them cook a little bit more quickly. That's it. We have about a half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, 6 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 2 1/4 cups of chicken broth. We have half a cup of cream, or half and half, or whole milk is fine too. We have 1 small russet potato, cubed. And we have 3/4 of a cup of frozen peas. So the first thing we're going to do is cut up our puff pastry sheets to make our crust points. So like I said, this is generally a 9-inch by 9-inch sheet, and the ones that I buy come in this sort of trifold. So really it's easiest just to cut along those folds. And then kind of like we were making a tic-tac-toe board, we're going to make these into squares, or at least roughly squares. There we go. Now each square we're going to cut into 2 triangles. And then we are going to brush the top with a little bit of the beaten egg. And you can do this after you lay them out on the cookie sheet. I just like to do it first because it's kind of easier to sort of cover the whole thing while it's still all together in one big square. And the egg wash is optional. You don't have to do this, but it does help kind of give you a nice shiny crust, just as though you were making a real pot pie. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and lay these out on our cookie sheet. And you just want to make sure you give them all a little bit of space so they don't puff or stick together. They're not going to, they shouldn't expand too much horizontally, but they will puff up quite a bit. Okay, so these are going to go into a 425-degree oven for about 10 to 15 minutes. We're just going to watch them. We're just looking for them to get a nice brown top and puff up, and then we'll pull them out. In the meantime, we can get started on our stew, so I'll be right back. Okay, puff pastry crust points are out of the oven. They look beautiful. And I'm just going to cover these with a clean kitchen towel to keep them warm. And we will come back to these when we are ready with our stew. Okay, to start on our stew, we are going to melt butter over medium heat. Okay, now we're going to add our onion. And celery. And carrots. And I'm going to season with the salt and pepper. And we're just going to cook this until the onions and the celery are translucent and the carrots have softened a bit. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Now I'm going to sprinkle in the flour. And mix that in until it's all dispersed. And as usual, this is just where we're trying to cook off some of that raw flour taste. It's going to get a little brown, that's okay. It's going to look like it's taking a turn towards burning, and that's okay. We're going to deglaze the pan with the chicken broth in just a couple of minutes. Okay, now that the flour is getting nice and toasty, I'm going to add the chicken broth. Add our potatoes. And our cream. And while we wait for this to come to a boil, I'm going to clean up a few of these things and we'll be right back. Okay, now that it's at a boil, we are going to turn this down. And we are going to cover it and let this simmer for about 10-15 minutes. I'll come check on it, make sure that the carrots and the potatoes are cooked through. And as long as they're good, we will be ready to add the peas and the chicken and we'll be almost done. Okay, I think we are ready to finish this up. So the chicken is going to go in. And peas. And we're really just mixing this to heat everything through. This looks perfect. I'm gonna get our crust points and it is time to eat. All right. Been kind of looking forward to this all day. Look at that. Perfect golden brown puff pastry crust points. And if you like the chicken pot pie, so if you made the chicken pot pie last time, then you know this is amazing. But this is so much more modular and adaptable. Any size group, you know, people can just throw it in their own bowl and grab a couple of the crust points. You don't have to worry about sloppy slices and what to do with the leftover pie. You just can easily go into a container in the fridge. And as long as you have these sealed in an airtight container once they're fully cooled, then you know, they'll last a few days too, and you can always bake off more crust points. All right, guys, I think that's it for another one. Did you like the recipe? Did you like the video? Give it a thumbs up. Tell me what you think down in the comments, or give it a thumbs down. Tell me what you think down in the comments. Critique, yell at me for something, ask a question, just say hey. That's it. We'll see you in the next one.